Good day to you. I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. I want to introduce the issues involved in our times. Why so many of our young people are scrambling to get to some country for a better future. This is a very sad state of affairs. How do we face up to this? There are the 60 and 70-year-old generation who are pioneers, who worked very hard for a better world, and in fact they achieved a better world. We know from 1950 to nearly 1990, world grew and people grew with it. There were great pioneers, great brand names. So the world grew. One good example is how South Korea grew with famous brands. And Sri Lanka also grew. But we know since 1990, world's economy, ecology, and different things began to run down. And 2020, the pandemic was only the climax of a whole lot of events that have been happening. So we have the 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds who are saying, what happened to the world we built with all our strength? Then you get the 45-year-olds whose children are now 15 and they are very concerned for the future of their kids. So droves of young people are looking to go to greener pastures to study or for some work permit. And our airports are full with this. What hope do we give in a world of pandemic, nations running down in their economics? So this generation, the 45-year-olds were the bridge generation, the zillennials, those who connected the old world with the exigencies of the new world. Then we have the millennial generation who are now beyond 32, passing through, and they were the ones that first got involved in the digital revolution, and also they were the ones who made it on their own as CEOs, younger CEOs and so on. So they have also worked hard and come to different stations in life. Now we have the I-Gen and the Z-Gen. They are passing 20 and they are saying, what is the hope we have in this world? So they have fantastic reality because they switch with the digital screen. So the effect of the digital screen has been, the pixel screen, too much of it, causes inattention. So your attention span becomes shallow and short. So it affects not only studies and curriculum, it also affects your character. You become short and shallow in your relationships, often switching over to different relationships. Secondly, you become impulsive, which means you make risky, precipitous decisions. You jump before you think about it, and you can face consequences of risky decisions, thrill, peril, the fright, flight, fight mode, easily angered and easily into drastic actions. And if sexual activity gets involved in this, it hurts a lot. Thirdly, the hyperactivity, which means you don't finish one thing, you get to the next thing. Where does this come from? So what happens is that initiation, navigation, reward, and well done, successful conclusion and reward motive has also dumbed down. So a lot of people don't know anymore reward. They only don't know excitement and thrill in this generation. So these are the features caused by the digital screen that affects this generation. Now you may say, I am not much on the digital screen, which may be true, but generation and the world scenario and the societal equanimity and the dynamics have been greatly influenced by this short and shallow, quick and fast thinking, and the expectation that you can have your way without much investment. So the expectation is great, but the reality is not so great. So happiness is equal to reality minus expectation. So when your expectation is sky high, lofty eyes, that's how this list goes, lofty eyes and placing your desires always in very high ground, sort of unachievable realities, fantastic realities, then you begin to have frustration on a major scale. So I have described 4 generations involved in the present trouble. What is the present trouble? How the generations have moved rather isolated each generation thinking the best for themselves. So we have the tragedy of so many young people fleeing the nation, and then who will look after their parents? This is there. Then what the digital screen does is, because of the kinesthesia, people live not in the present but in the next. So before initiation, in what you initiated, you have to navigate through. That may involve time, and sometimes like marriage, it's a navigation through all of your life. Then you have a successful conclusion and a reward motive that propels you with a reward motive into your next interval. That is quite disrupted. People have a lot of disappointment, frustration, anger, criticism, blame transfer, and they try to get on to the next thing, driven by what was broken in the last hour. This is called top-down. We should operate in top-down regulation, but we have moved to bottom-up regulation. Whatever went on in the last hour is driving us in a way we did not plan. Then, because of the kinesthesia of the pixel screen, there's a generation that is always on the move, from this job to that job, this project to that job, that project. So they are not in the present, they are always in the next, always in the next. So we know that always in the next kinesthesia is an imbalance, and dopamine is driven till sometimes they get chronic fatigue syndrome and depression easily. And that's why the suicides. So we are training parents. I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last substantive post was as Head of Department of Pharmacology in a state medical faculty. If you want any more detailed clips on any one of the subjects I am touching in general today, please send a WhatsApp to 076 313 4800 if you are in another nation, +94 76 313 4800. So when the person is on the screen a lot, the kinesthesia moves him from this to this, next one. They are always on the next one without finishing the present one, from where you get your reward. Secondly, they hear a lot of voices from outside as to what they ought to be, how they like to be, and they lose their inner voice. Now I want to emphasize this: the Good Shepherd speaks your destiny in your inner voice. He said, "My sheep hear my voice." So if you have a destined life, you hear your destiny in your inner voice. When you are listening to so many other voices because of the screen life, you lose your inward direction of who you are. Then the visuals of the screen also sets you up always for the fantastic, unachievable, because you have vision on the outside but not the character to develop the vision. So vision makes you think or look for much, expect much, but you need character to implement the vision to a successful end conclusion. So between vision and implementation, there's a big disconnect. So there are so many projects hanging in the air without a successful end conclusion, which affects your character. At the same time, when you are listening to so many voices on the screen life, you lose who you are. Empathic, intuitive. That's what the brain tracks show you. The brain tracks will show you the empathic, intuitive, authentic me. I must have an authentic me in a changing world. For that, you must have your inner voice speaking to you and the Good Shepherd speaking to you in your inside. The second important tract is empathic, relational. That is all jumbled because you have short, shallow relationships. There are no firm foundations in relationships. So if the younger generation is listening to this, I'm addressing 4 generations. The 60s and 70s who achieved much. The 45-year-olds who are now in a real crux situation. How do we go on in the world with this kind of pressures? Then the 33-year-olds who were looking for a world that they can be fantastic, but it is not a nice world we are in. It's a world where the fittest of the survival, global schemes to get wealth out of nations into the hands of a few billionaires. And then we have the 20 to 24-year-old generation saying, where do we find our future? They are in such jetsam flotsam, they are looking for a future that the world has consumed and finished seemingly. So it's a hard time. It's a hard time. So we need to find our inner voice, and we need to find the empathic relationships that will tick our life without running down. Then the third important track is our language track, and what the screen has done is disrupted communication, disrupted oxytocin. So you get nasty people whose teeth are like sharp swords, whose speech is like daggers, because there is no language and communication. And more we read and more we write, the more our brain becomes brilliant, and new neuronal formations happen in our reading and writing. And we must read our books again, even good books, nice books, and we must keep writing. And for those who are aging, if you write 4 A4 pages in 2 languages, whatever you like to write, a journal and so on in 2 languages, then you don't get Alzheimer. That's how powerful reading and writing is, because you know the writing clockwise, anti-clockwise, all that goes to keep your brain sharp, smart, and without decay. So that's a little brief thing about the language development. Never give up on language. Fourth track is our planning, logical forecasting track. We must have that going on, otherwise the screen always gives a fantastic vision for the future. But we have to do it from now to then, now to there. That needs your logical track. So everything on the screen, too much, the performing tracks, dumb down the planning ones. This is what, and the relational ones. First four is about relation, planning, identity. Kinesthetic, acoustic, visual are the performance tracks. They are useful, but they can't dumb down our basic existence, which is what the screen has done. So I think I have given enough description about how screen adds to the difficulties of the present time. Then third section I want to come to is what has happened to the world. What has happened to the world is that during the 2 COVID years, 150 new billionaires have been created, and 1 billionaire was earning about $6 billion a day. Such was the inequality of wealth transfer just in 2 years. Just in 2 years. Lot has changed in the world's economic structure, and if you think this was happenstance, you are mistaken. So they will now move for digitization of currency. Nations lose the value of sovereign currency, sovereign national currency, and the nations have lost a lot of their say because of a engineered global emergency, and nations have lost wealth, wealth earning opportunity, nations have lost the people potential. It's a very sad world. In this sad world, I am suggesting to you that man is making, few men are making most slaves. We are getting back to Pharaoh time. Make brick without straw, Pharaoh time. So we don't have the resources, but we have to keep producing food and so on. It's a very sad place we have come, but there is a good shepherd. So I'm strongly pitching now that we need this good shepherd in our life. You know, till I entered medical, I came first in the island in the A-level examination doing zoo, botany, chemistry, physics. My school was St. Thomas's College, and I entered Colombo Medical Faculty, and in every exam I was batch top. But I realized as my brain got brilliant, my heart had no room for others. Research, knowledge, they were my twin gods. Research and knowledge, research and knowledge. Every frontier has to be explored, and it's a world where weak has no place. This I realized, thankfully. Then I realized there is a good shepherd who works with my brain and my heart. My suggestion is, when the brain is increasing, heart is shrinking. If you don't take special steps to keep your heart growing, this is where the good shepherd comes in and says, I will create in new paths that you will walk well, and I provide you your table of life. That's what he said. I will provide you your table of life, your place. Maybe you are the senior, maybe you are the most capable of, which means you are the benefactor, so that others sit alongside you, and you make their world better because you are benefactor, they are beneficiaries. You may be a company chairman, you may be a doctor, lawyer, whatever your station in life, at least your family depends on you. So you become a benefactor to your family. But your ability is greater. You can create a workplace which offers livelihood for 10 more families. So you are a benefactor. If you are a chairman of a large company, then you may be providing livelihoods for 10,000. That's the measure. But the important thing is God gave you, the Good Shepherd gave you the table and the chair, the placement and the persons, and your purpose and your proportion of life, so that you can be in God's design, helping the world to be a better place, everyone to have their right portion, God-given portion, and none to be invaded by predators. So the world has become a place of predators preying on gullible people using different methods, and health became, in the last 2 years, a very potent weapon for economic strangulation, economic exploitation. Nations had to spend so much because of the engineered pandemic. So we have a system now, nations are struggling. They are losing their boundaries, they are losing their sovereignty, they are losing their young generation. Engineered migration into so many other countries. Engineered migration happened with wars at one time. Now engineered migration has happened with economic strangulation. People are fleeing helter-skelter, looking for a work permit, better place to live, leaving their own countries and their parents and their siblings. So the world has become really a place of struggle for existence, survival of the fittest. So we really need the Good Shepherd in our life. He can help. I didn't think so till I found how hard-hearted I can be, just advancing knowledge, cutting-edge knowledge, research knowledge, but man needs to be a beneficiary, and there has to be benefactors and beneficiaries in right relationship, that world might be a livable place. So if you want any more clips on a technical subject longer, please send me a WhatsApp to 076313480, or else you can also download my app free of charge, which is Dr. Lalith Mendis Golden Nuggets, either from App Store or from Google Store for Android. Thank you for listening. This is only an introductory summary talk. Each of these items that I spoke to you about, I have done more detailed clips. I hope you will ask for more. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. Please share this with a friend. Thank you.